a village called Murmuring Hollow, the wind never stopped talking. It rattled the shutters at dawn, hissed gossip through the wheat fields by noon, and by night it curled into the chimneys and told the coals old secrets that made them hiss and pop. The chickens clucked complaints. The mill wheel groaned its endless work. Even the river seemed to chatter over its stones, as though it had once been a talkative old woman turned to water and never quite lost the habit. In this village lived a girl named Wren, and Wren could not sleep. It wasn't that she disliked sound. She loved her mother's humming while kneading bread, and the way her little brother laughed in his sleep. But she was a girl who felt everything twice as loud as everyone else. The creak of a floorboard sat in her chest like a struck bell, and a single barking dog could keep her staring at the ceiling till dawn. Her parents grew thin with worry, watching her grow paler, quieter in the day, for having no rest at night. One evening, an old traveling peddler stopped at the well, and, seeing Wren's hollowed eyes, leaned close and said, "There is a place at the forest edge where silence pools like rainwater in a stone. Only the desperate find it. Only the desperate need to." That night, Wren followed the tree line until the wheat gave way to old oaks, their roots thick as sleeping serpents, and there, cupped in a hollow stone beneath the widest oak, she found it, a clearing where even the crickets held their breath. No wind stirred the leaves. No owl called. It was as though the whole world had been muted. With a single soft hand, she had brought a small glass jar for preserves. Kneeling, she scooped the silence into it, and it went in like water, like cool mist, like something that wanted to be caught. She screwed the lid on tight and carried it home tucked against her chest, warm as a held breath. That night, for the first time in a year, Wren slept. She dreamed of nothing at all, and it was wonderful. The next night she went back for more, and the next, and the next. Each jarful brought her a deeper, sweeter sleep. She began to glow with rest. Her cheeks filled out. Her eyes cleared. She laughed again at her brother's jokes. But silence, it turned out, does not give without taking. It began small. The baker, reaching for his usual morning cry of fresh bread, found the words simply wouldn't come. His mouth opened, and nothing followed. He shrugged it off as a cold. The bell tower rang for Sunday service, but its bronze tongue struck and made no sound at all, so that the whole congregation stood in the square, staring up in confusion, and mistook the silence for reverence. Then Wren's mother, humming over the bread dough, found the tune had gone out of her like water from a cracked jug. She kept humming, mouth moving, throat working, but no melody came. She laughed it off too. Everyone did. At first, a quiet village seemed, on the surface, a peaceful one. It was Wren's little brother who frightened her into noticing. She found him in the yard, sitting very still, tears streaming down his face. But when she knelt beside him and asked what was wrong, he only opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Not a sob, not a word. He had been crying for an hour, silently, because even his grief had been stolen from him. Wren looked down at the jar in her hands, heavier now, thick with weeks of silence, and understood with a cold drop in her stomach exactly where it had all gone. She ran that night, jar clutched to her chest, back through the wheat, into the oaks, to the hollow stone. She unscrewed the lid with shaking hands and poured it all out. Weeks of stolen quiet, gallons of it by now, expecting some great flood of sound to come roaring back into the world. Instead, the silence gathered itself in the clearing and slowly took the shape of an old woman. She was thin as wood smoke, and where her eyes should have caught the moonlight, there were only 2 unlit lanterns waiting. "You didn't steal silence, child," the woman said, and her voice was strange as though it arrived a moment after her lips moved. "You only borrowed what people were too afraid to fill for themselves. Noise is easy to make. It is silence that people cannot bear to sit inside, so they fill it, always, with anything at all. Chatter, habit, fear of being alone with their own thoughts." "I didn't mean for this to happen," Wren said. "I only wanted to sleep." "I know." The old woman's not quite voice softened. "But you took a whole village's worth of quiet and hoarded it for yourself in a jar, instead of learning to carry a little of your own. That is the trouble with sleeping girls and hungry silences. Both only know how to take. Then how do I give it back? How do I fix them?" The old woman considered her for a long moment. Lanterns unlit, but somehow still seeing everything. "You cannot pour it back exactly as it was spilled. Water never quite finds its old shape, but I can teach you the difference between the silence you stole and the quiet you were always meant to have. One is a hole where sound used to be. The other is a room you build yourself, on purpose, with a door you can open and close." She reached out and touched 2 fingers to Wren's forehead. It didn't hurt. It felt like a held breath finally let go. "Go home," the woman said. "The village will find its voice again by morning, I think, now that its silence has been returned to the wide world instead of trapped in glass. But you'll keep something smaller. A pocketful of quiet, yours alone, that doesn't ask anyone else to go silent so you can rest." Wren walked home beneath a sky suddenly loud with owls and wind and the distant chatter of the river, and it was the best sound she had ever heard. By morning, the baker's cry rang out over the square as though nothing had happened. The bell tower rang true. Her mother hummed over the dough, slightly off-key as always, and her brother chattered through breakfast about a dream involving a 3-legged dog, laughing so hard he nearly choked on his porridge. And Wren slept that night, and every night after, not because the world had gone still around her, but because she had learned to carry her own small, chosen quiet like a smooth stone in her pocket. She took it out only when she needed it in the church pew during a long sermon. In the middle of an argument, she didn't want to join. In the hush just before sleep, she never went back to the hollow stone. She didn't need to. Some say, though, that on windless nights, if you stand very still at the edge of Murmuring Hollow's forest, you can still feel a clearing out there where no crickets sing, patient, waiting, ready to lend its quiet to the next tired soul who needs it. Just not too much of it, and never for too long.
Please subscribe my channel, like and share my video.